Welcome. If you look and see Mr. Hunter, how do you told me how you pronounce it. I'm just calling you Neville
It's
Longbottom, but
Neville. Yeah,
I was right. I told Carlos that too. It's like it's Neville, but I was like,
that's
it's
right.
did that this morning. Okay, so I'm gonna reach out to Josh real fast, claim that host setup, but go ahead and say hello to everybody. He's gonna be dropping some bombs today. But he's just kind of like me and Carlos is just like value. I resonated super with him whenever I was with him recently, and it's gonna be a fire call, guys. It's gonna be sweet. So hold on one second. I'm gonna mute myself. Go ahead and say what's up.
What's good, Hunter? What's popping, brother? I'm eager to hear what you got to say, man. I'm eager to hear this fire you're about to spit, brother.
Dustin's setting the expectation high, so usually I like to set expectations low. Promise the desert, give the oasis, but Dustin's promising the oasis, the Taj Mahal, you name it, he's promising it. So I guess I need all your help to deliver. So, but I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, bro. We're all excited. Most definitely.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you haven't even started, but I want to, give you thanks. Thanks for putting your time out here and, taking your time to be here with the Powerhouse today. I appreciate that, brother.
That's right.
Because I know that comping is a huge thing that a lot of people have issues with. And I think Dustin kind of made it clear on his Facebook post. He said it, really well. It's comping is one of the major issues that a lot of people are having when they're beginning real estate careers. And then I would say, especially with the market change. So it's going to be a great class. Appreciate it, man.
No, I'm excited. It's like you said, it's funny because I was talking to another appraiser today. He's also an investor, and we were chatting. We have people reach out to us periodically, and we had a lady who we were talking to yesterday about a property, and sometimes when you've been doing this for a lot of years, you look at the property and you're like, well, anybody can comp this because you've done it so many times. You think, oh, I don't need to share this with anybody because it's a no-brainer. Because to you, it's like when you do 500 appraisals a year for banks. I mean, you comp hundreds and hundreds of properties. It becomes, second nature. And then when you have these questions that to me feel kind of basic, I realize that they're not basic. And when I started as an appraiser, I looked at a house and all the houses looked the same to me, right? And now as an appraiser, it's like, it's very clear which ones compete with which ones. And so Dustin's great. Loved meeting him at Scale and Escape. Glad he's, given me the opportunity to be here. And he's already brought a lot of value to my life and be getting plugged in with communities like Powerhouse. I can tell, already just in the side chat from some of the comments that have been made, you guys are go-givers, right? You guys share that and I resonate with that. And anybody who's like that, and even people who are not, I want to be there and share anything I can that's helpful.
Yeah, so. Awesome. With that being said, everybody with their cameras off, if you can turn them on, take a quick screen grab of this and put that with the Zoom link on your social media. Go ahead and throw that on your Instagram. You can tag it if you go into on an Instagram story. If you just go to the little face, and you just type in link and you put the link on there, people can click in and come in. Let's boost this room up, get as many people in here. There's going to be some value, but also just build up the community. The more valuable people that we involve into the community, like yourselves, the more just value that we can build within the group, guys. The more people we can help, with people like Hunter, with people like Matt that came in, with people like each and every one of you individuals and Carlos. So let's see it. Tag me and Carlos too, so we can share it. I want to see like 1 billion little notifications popping up in the corner, guys.
Hey, how do I do it?
So if you just take a screenshot of this or take a picture of it with your phone or something, and you go over and just do a little Instagram post. The little face, the little square face or whatever, if you click that, there's something that says link. If you just paste the link to the Zoom chat in there, somebody go ahead and put it in the chat for me real quick. If you copy and paste that, then anybody that looks at your story can click it and just jump right into the Zoom. And then you can tag Carlos and I. Carlos, what's your Insta tag? What's Hunter? Hunter, your Insta tag. I tagged you.
I'll put it right here in the side chat.
Yeah, put yours in there too, Hunter.
What up? How's everybody doing?
Bless. How you doing?
Going on, Silos?
Oh man, I'm fantastic. You guys ready to rock or what?
Right.
Go, let's
What's up, everybody? Everybody say what's
Go,
up. I
let's
want to hear some
go.
noise. I want to hear like
What's
a
up,
little
what's up?
seminar or something.
Oh, so Cameron is our
Yeah.
What
he's
up?
like our
What up?
mascot. I need to get you an
Y'all wanna
outfit.
hear
Good, was good.
He breaks his mic every time he gets excited.
Wake
Come on,
up, baby!
There you
Yeah, there we
go.
go. I like that type of energy. This is like
Let's
a
get it,
virtual
baby. He's
seminar.
about to drop some bombs in here. Let's go.
Virtual seminar, guys. It needs to be loud. It needs to be loud.
Right?
I yelled. I
Cameron,
think I
you're
yelled
official.
yesterday in my office. I yelled, or I forgot when. I was like, "Woo!" all loud, and my lady's like, "What the fuck's going on?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm just fired up virtually." Fired up virtually.
Right?
Yeah.
I used to do it the
Cameron's
last
been
2
yelling
years, right?
so much lately. He's so hyped. He blew his speakers out again. His sound was delayed.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. He's
All right, hold on,
I'm
I
starting to
gotta
go fund me for an
Yeah.
Amazon speaker. Just kidding.
All right,
What
don't
time
turn
is
the
it?
cameras off yet. Come on.
yeah, there we
Let's
go.
get it, fam. Let's go.
Everybody already posted.
Okay, everybody, let's get
reposted
it.
the link. You guys reposted the link on your guys' Facebook, on your guys' story for Facebook and Instagram.
Oh
Let's do
yeah,
this,
dude.
guys.
I'm
Post it.
just waiting to get kicked out of groups.
Hey, I want more. Yeah, exactly. Right. Get kicked out of groups. Shit, I can't even tag in sub 2 or creative financing anymore. And I'm a fucking student because I tagged too many times.
Yeah.
It's all good, man. Keep doing your thing. I got to a point so many times where Facebook wouldn't allow me to add anybody because I was adding too many people and DMing too many damn people. I do it right now. Now that I DM everybody for private money now. I'm like, how I always post stuff. Now I DM stuff personally to people. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? My name is Carlos Reese. If I haven't introduced myself, I do this, that. I do all this type of stuff. I can help you here. Love to exchange some value with you. By the way, are you actively investing in real estate transactions? And I'd love to speak with you. Boom, right? And then actually in like 1 week, I found like 3 or 4 people that together had like an extra 500,000. One person funded the deal that was like that I needed for like 90 grand. Like within like the first conversation I had with him. He was the most educated lender too that I've met. This motherfucker asked more questions. Luckily, I was just prepared for everything. But I was like, dude, you're like the most experienced guy because you've asked me way more questions than everybody I know.
Hell yeah.
I don't got any tags coming in yet, guys.
Oh, I'm literally about to. I'm adding the photo. Right. Mine's literally about to be right there, right
All right,
now.
yeah. Let's
It's
blow up
posted.
Hunter too. Yeah, put make sure to tag his in there. Let's Hunter.
Carrie, you just added me. I'm looking at a photo with you without a beard.
Me.
Carrie.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all right.
Hey, did I do it right?
Bro, that shouldn't exist, man. I gotta delete.
Now that I have a beard, I'll never not have a beard.
Hey, do you got a chin under that beard?
Not anymore.
Yeah. You know, some of them dudes with after No Shave November, they shave it off, man. It look like they just got top teeth.
Yeah, it's funny. So let's see. We got 50 people in here now. Everybody started posting and tagging. Cool, guys. Should we start up at 2:15?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see here. There we go. I'm starting to get some tags. What's going on, guys?
Who's doing the 75 hard with us in here? Say I am in the side chat. I want to know who's all doing this shit. Let's see. There we go. Judith is so far. Well, I am. Eric is. Javian is. Let's go. Who else? Oli. So I'm on day 3. Is everybody on day 3 or is everybody on day 2 or 3? Day 3. Cool. You guys drinking water? You guys are not lying to yourself behind the. I almost forgot. Check it out. I almost forgot to take a photo last night. And I was like, nah, I'll just post a photo from yesterday because I took a whole bunch of photos. Like this was yesterday. So yesterday would have been 2 days ago at that time. And then, like 1 minute later, I was just thinking in my head, I started thinking, oh, that's cutting corners right there, Carlos. In that fucking woke up, like I was about to lay down and sleep. That was the last thing I forgot to do was take a photo. So I woke up, then just took off my fucking shirt and then went into the mirror, took a photo and completed it and then posted it. Didn't want to cut any corners Hope you guys are doing it the same way. Make sure you guys aren't cutting no fucking corners, you cheaters.
I'll jump in there. So started 75 hard a couple months ago, and I stepped on the scale. I was at an inspection appointment. I didn't even own a scale, and I'm sitting there. I'm inspecting a house for an appraisal, and there's a scale. Anyway, there's a scale. So I step on, and it reads 255, and I thought, what in the hell? Like, I've never weighed that much in my entire life. Anyway, and so I was learning about 75 hard. I said, I'm going to do it, and so I started it. Got to day 28. I did exactly what you just said, Carlos. I went to bed. I did not take my progress pick. I drank my gallon. I worked out both times that day, did everything, read my 10 pages. I forgot the progress pick. And so guess what? I had to start over. So
yeah, that's the right way to do it, man. Good job.
Anyway, so I like that. So I love that you guys are doing that right now.
This guy's true to himself. That's why he's at where he's at, because he's true to himself. Good shit, man. Good shit. Well, fuck it. We'll just start it up right now. So, Hunter, thanks for coming in. Dustin, thanks for getting Hunter here. And then, Hunter, when you're free, I mean, when you're ready, go ahead and just introduce yourself a little bit, go over some of the topics we're going to be going over, and then we can just roll into it. Okay?
That sounds good. Let me unmute myself. So I'm Hunter Neville. I'm a certified residential appraiser. What that means is in appraising, there's 4 levels of licensing. There's a trainee, you're working underneath somebody. There's a licensed guy. You can do most residential properties, but you have limitations on your license. You can only do things that aren't complex. You cannot do multifamily if it's over $1 million, that type of stuff. And then there's what I am, a certified residential appraiser. I can do anything that's residential 1 to 4 units, regardless of complexity, price. You can do multi-million-dollar houses, like I said, up to 4 units. The next level of licensing is a little different. It's where it takes the change. Yeah, that's a commercial general appraiser. They're your guys who are appraising hotels. They're appraising, big apartment complexes, office buildings, industrial space. It's a little different process. So what I do is I've got the highest level of licensing for residential. And so I focus mostly 1 to 4 units. Been doing it for about 5 years. Yeah, I love it. I knew I wanted to be an investor at 20 years old. Didn't realize there were awesome communities. So hats off to you if you're plugged in here with Powerhouse, because I didn't know these communities were out there. So here I am, a 20-year-old kid, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad like everybody else, listening to some podcasts, and making a few cold calls off county records. But I don't have any type of sales training. Not that you need those things. I just had no idea what I was doing. And a guy approached me and said, "Hey, I want to train an appraiser. You got to leave. You got to go to a different market." I lived in St. George, Utah at the time, about an hour and a half from Vegas. It's that southern corner of Utah, Arizona, Nevada. And I said, well, if that's my way into the real estate investing world, like, I'm up for it. So that's where my journey began. At the time, when I became an appraiser, you had to have a bachelor's degree. I had dropped out of school because I was like, all the investors I know, they brag about the smaller the formal education, the more proud they are of where they are and how they're making so much money. And so I had dropped out of college. I'm like, I'm not going to school. And then I got approached by this appraiser, like, yeah, you got to go to school. So I went back to school, got my degree in accounting. Never had any desire to be an accountant. I love accountants. They're so helpful for me in my business and just in my life. I just knew that wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do for the next 40 to 50 years. I wanted to be an investor. And that's kind of what brings me to present, right? So pretty much been building up an appraisal company for the last couple of years. Started down here in Phoenix in 2020. And I've invested on the side. Always knew that was where I wanted to be eventually, but kind of just did it as more of a side gig. Bought a couple of fourplexes, flipped a couple, done a couple of single families, just wrapped up a mobile home flip. That's my first mobile home that's listed right now. And it's been really nice as I've started to scale back my appraisal company. And as things slowed down in the market, it's given me an awesome opportunity to transition back into investing, which is what I'm passionate about, what I love. Flew out to Scale and Escape, met Dustin, super glad I went, super glad I was able to meet him. And that kind of brings you up to speed. So of who I am and what I'm doing. So it's great to be here. I love it. Part of some of the other communities that a lot of these guys are. I'm part of Sub 2, a couple other communities that I deal with on a daily basis, but incredible people here. So fairly new to Sub 2. So, but I'm liking it so far. My second my second fourplex I ever did was a seller carryback deal. So I bought the property. I wanted to buy both properties. Didn't understand, like I said, the communities or the money side of things. So I asked my friends and family. hey, I've got these 2 fourplexes locked up. I'd like to buy them. Anybody want to partner with me? And everyone's like, well, no. So I was like, crap, like, what do I do? And somebody's like, well, why don't you wholesale them? Ended up wholesaling both of them and just kind of stumbling my way through it. And ended up negotiating a seller finance on one of them because they didn't want to take the gain all in 1 year. So they needed the tax benefits. So that's kind of my introduction there, but I love creative finance. Cash is what I'm most comfortable with, right? Because that's above my alley. You determine ARV, that's my favorite. And then you offer your cash offer for a wholesale deal or fix and flip. So that's who I am. So with that, anything else before we kind of dive into what I'm covering as far as appraisals go? Anything else? Okay.
Ah,
If
I
not,
love it, man.
okay,
Love the
we'll
story.
jump. Oh, of course, happy to. Okay, we'll jump in. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to cover Dustin. When we've talked, he's like, you know what? Something that's super valuable is what are the most common mistakes that you see in comping, right? I see this not just in investors, I see it in agents. All the time, agents will send me comps. Like I'll go out to the house, I'll inspect it, I'll take my pictures, I'll measure the property, and the agent will provide me a little packet of comps. And they'll say, hey, here's why we believe our house is worth this, amount, this specific amount. And sometimes they're right on, but more often than not, they're incorrect. Their comps that they're pulling are they're not the best comparables out there, and they're not the comparables that an appraiser is going to look at. So I'm going to go over what an appraiser looks at, why they look at it that way, and ultimately, for better or for worse, in the transaction, when you get to the final stage, that retail sell, if you're doing a traditional retail sell, the appraiser is that hinge point, right? Bank wants to loan money, buyer wants to borrow the money, and they want this transaction to happen, and they put this guy right in the middle, an appraiser who kind of helps the transaction either happen or not happen. If the appraiser says the value's not there, deal doesn't go through, or they got to come up with more money. And so, like I said, for better or for worse, you got to know what they're looking at and why they look at it that way and how they're trained so that you can comp that way and you can have the most likely chance of being successful in your own fix and flips and your own wholesale deals because you comp like an appraiser. Anyway, so that's what I'll be going over. Common mistakes I see. I'll be going over definition of market value, who the appraiser is attempting to simulate in an appraisal. A couple other examples, but that's main. I'm keeping it kind of basic because you can get into the weeds pretty quickly. I was talking to a lady yesterday. She was trying to figure out how to comp a property. It was 3 houses on a single parcel of land on commercial zoning, and they were all residential houses. And she's like, I have no idea where to start. So you could spend 30 minutes, an hour on that exact example and get into all the weeds that we don't need to get into today. If you have those questions, text me offline, message me, reach out to Carlos, Dustin, these other great guys, and get in contact with me. We can talk about those things at a later date. Today we're covering what I feel like, even if you're not a beginner, even if you've got experience in comping, it's just those basic fundamentals that help everybody. Somebody who's great at this and somebody who's not, they're helpful across the board. So we'll get started there. I'm gonna drink some water. For 75 hard, it's 3 of these. Everyone laughs at me because I have a Stanley cup, right? Like what my wife carries, right? Or other like fitness Instagram people. But here in Arizona, basically living on the surface of the sun, if you have any other kind of water bottle, it's hot in 2 seconds. You drive across the city and you leave that water bottle in your car, it's a million degrees. And so I used to do just a hydro flask, which is like 20 ounces. And by the time I'm done with my first house and I've got 9 more to go to, I'm so parched, I got to stop somewhere. And so my wife's like, and she's the opposite. We got 2 kids. She's got this Stanley cup over here and she's got my little boys and she's trying to wrestle them, wrangle them. And it constantly gets tipped over and spills water all over the place. And so I'm over here, my water bottle is not big enough. And she's over here, my water bottle spills. And I'm like, well, I drive in a car, and we just swapped. And anyway, that's why I got the Stanley cup. So little side story for you guys there. All right, let's get into it. Most common mistakes. The most common mistake I see, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this even today when yesterday when I was underwriting a creative finance deal. I was looking at my numbers. I knew what my war chest or my CapEx and maintenance expense should be on this property, right around 10, 15, it was about 15%. And the numbers just weren't looking that good. So I'm like, we can squeeze a little bit more. Let's drop that down to 10%. And I was like, do we need to account for vacancy? Maybe, maybe not. And what I was doing is I was forcing the deal to happen, right? I was forcing the numbers to look better than they were because I had a motivated seller. It was a good lead and I wanted it to work. And so I was fudging those fundamental numbers that if I want to be a smart investor and I want to be around a long time, you got to follow and you got to stick to those things. That happens in comping. That happens in, very, very typical fix and flip situations. It's okay to, be optimistic as long as you're doing that with data that supports your reasoning, your logic. Everything in appraisal is logical, right? You have to justify your value to the bank, to the underwriter, whoever finally looks at that number. They have to be able to see, how did you come up with your numbers? How did you derive your adjustments? And why did you do it that way? So that they can agree or disagree with what you've come up with. So all that being said, trying to justify your price. A great example of this is I went to an auction, it's been a couple months ago, and I was there ready to bid. I knew about where the home should sell for. It was a probate sale, and it was at an auction. And it was nice because it wasn't at county, it wasn't at the courthouse, so you didn't have all your good old boys there. It was on site. And so you had just more likelihood of that somebody's not going to force you out of the market. You can still get a decent deal. And this one kid kept raising his hand, right? Anybody higher? Raise his hand. And he was getting a little bit antsy at the end. But you could tell he really wanted the deal. And, he seemed like he was balling, right? He pulled up in his Range Rover. He had his, a frosted top and some cool sunglasses. So I'm like, he obviously is doing something right, or looks like it. Buys the deal higher than what I would have bought the deal at. And it was so funny. Less than 24 hours later. So, obviously he didn't have to close. This was nice. This was different in this auction situation. They only had 10 days to close. I see it on my local Arizona real estate page. He's ready to wholesale it. He's got his ARV up there. Here's what it's worth. And I look at his number. I'm like, I want to see that. Like, I want to see if his ARV is right. So I hop at the property. I pull the comps. We've got a property across the street, model match, 1,018 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath, same year build. It was like a 1970 build. Sold a couple months ago. It was a little bit old for a good comp, but it sold for $400,000. Then we have 2 listings on the street, also great comps. One was listed for $410,000, one was listed for $415,000. They were all flipped properties. This area there's a lot of activity happening. And this guy has the audacity to throw up the ARV at $445,000 on my investor page. Like, hey, ARV, I've got a deal, ARV $445,000. And here I am like, how are you coming up with that? Like, there's not even bad comps to use to justify that price. So going back to trying to justify your price, when you're pulling comps for your subject, I'm going to use that term subject a lot. That's what an appraiser calls the property, your deal, your lead, whatever you want to call it. That's the subject to an appraiser. That is the property they are trying to determine market value for. So if you've got your subject, and you know what the seller is willing to agree to on your price, and you need to lock it up for about 65% ARV, or what, depending on your market, maybe less, maybe more. You're running those numbers, and you're like, well, man, at that price, I'm 80% ARV. If I buy at this price based on the comps I'm seeing, I'm at 80%. That deal is not going to wholesale. It's not going to sell. So they go and they start looking for other comps. Maybe they go back further in time. Maybe they've got comps, in the last 6 months, they go back a year to find another comp that maybe justifies. Or they go and they start expanding their search parameters outside of the subdivision, maybe outside of a mile, maybe across some major, geographical boundaries, big streets, freeways, etc. Trying to find those comps. And that's what I see with agents. I had a house over in Goodyear that I was appraising, and the agent sends me these comps. I pull up the comps, and the comps are from like 3 miles away in a totally different subdivision. I've got very similar houses that would compete right in my own subdivision. So if you've got sales right there, proximity is huge. Recentness of sale is huge. Proximity meaning how close it is. If it's a street over, likely going to be a good comparable as long as it's got similar characteristics, bedroom, bathroom count, square footage, etc. So don't kind of try to justify your price by pulling other comparables. Don't ignore anything that's a legitimate comparable. And we'll get into more what makes a legitimate comparable, but don't ignore those things. Even if you want to say the ARV is higher, because you'll see wholesalers, they'll send their comps and they might, if you don't go look at your own comps, they might look like legitimate comparables based on, they're all 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot Rambler style homes, ranch style homes. But if you go look, and they might be pulling them from other neighborhoods, like I said, to justify that price they're hoping the ARV might be. If you don't have any comps in your subdivision, by all means, go to the next subdivision over. Call up the agents. Hey, if your buyer is looking in this subdivision and they don't have anything to buy, or they're looking at other sales, what neighborhood, what subdivision will they also go to? That's going to be a really good way. If you've got no sales, that comes up all the time, right? Hey, I looked at my subdivision, there's not a single sale. Call up agents, ask other local investors. Agents are a great resource if you call enough of them. And they tell you, hey, everybody who looks in Maryvale also looks in Siesta Estates, right? It's another subdivision nearby over here in West Phoenix, which is true. Similar houses, similar style, similar demographic, and similar consumer. That's a great way to find competing neighborhoods. But don't go to that competing neighborhood if you have sales in your own neighborhood, because the appraiser, whether you like it or not, even if you think that sale over there is a great sale, he's going to use the sales in your own subdivision. Let me get some more water. I'll talk as an appraiser. It's funny because I love people. I love talking. And as an appraiser, I'm just here in my office. I've got my secretary in the office over and I'm just typing. That's all I do. Just type and be quiet. And I don't like that. That's why I like investing. I love communicating, interacting, adding value. And so Dustin gave me an opportunity like this. I mean, it's up my alley in the way that I just love people and I want to help. So first one, don't justify your price. Second one, don't compare a single level home with a 2-story. I see that a lot. And the reason being, there's a couple factors, but as an appraiser, you know what, let's skip to a part where let's read the definition of market value. I'm gonna read that for you guys. This is the appraiser definition of market value, what we abide by. Market value is the most probable price that a property should bring in a competitive and open market under all conditions requisite to a fair sale. The buyer and seller, each acting prudently, knowledgeably, and assuming that the price is not affected by undue stimulus. Implicit in this definition is the consummation of a sale as of a specified date and the passing of title from seller to buyer under conditions whereby buyer and seller are typically motivated, both parties are well informed or well advised, and each acting in what he or she considers his or her own best interest. A reasonable time is allowed for exposure to the open market. Payment is made in terms of cash in US dollars or in terms of financial arrangements comparable thereto. Sorry, last sentence. And the price represents the normal consideration for a property sold unaffected by special or creative financing or sales concessions granted by anybody associated with the sale. It's a lot. It's a long definition, and all that is simply saying is a couple things. Buyer and seller are smart. They understand the market. I'm not coming from California to Phoenix and saying, well, in California, this is $1 million house. In Phoenix, it's only 500,000. I'm going to pay 7. It's a screaming deal, right? That's not acting knowledgeably for our market. Because what does the bank care about? What do we all care about? Preserving the money that we make. And so a bank, that's what they care about. They lend you money, they lend a buyer money, and they want to know, worst case scenario, this person gets foreclosed on. I'm going to recoup all that I lent on this asset. I'm not going to have to take a loss. So all of those factors that an appraiser is looking at is to keep the money safe that a lender is lending. So who cares that a buyer out of California wants to pay $700,000? No way a bank is going to lend $600,000 on a property that's only worth $500,000. That's why appraisers get paid. They're specialists in the market. They study the market trends, and they are there to state what the typical buyer acting in their own best interest would most likely pay for this house today. And it's a snapshot in time. That leads to another common mistake. So we'll wrap up the 2-story versus 1-story. And then I'll jump into that second common mistake that really relates to the definition of market value. The reason that a 2-story doesn't compete with a single level in most situations, right? Just like in everything in life, it depends, right? There's rare situations where that might be a good comp, but overall, generally speaking, it's not. Because here in Phoenix, we get a lot of retirees, a lot of elderly people. Elderly people don't like stairs. They don't want to go upstairs to get to their bedroom. They don't want to have to come downstairs to cook. Usually their knees are hurting. They've got replaced hips. They're not looking at 2-stories. So even if you have a 4,000 square foot 2-story, all those elderly people, and maybe 4,000 square feet's a little big, you got a 2,500 square foot 2-story, all those elderly people who we have coming here to retire, they're not looking at those houses because they don't want to go up those stairs. So they're looking at all the one level 2,500 square foot homes instead. And what that does is it creates a different buyer pool for that product, right? If you've got in investing, right, your fix and flippers are looking at a little bit different product than somebody who's looking at your buy and hold. Your exit strategies are different. How much you're willing to pay is different because it's once again, it's back to your exit strategy. So same thing, different market segments buy different houses. So right here back to market value and the common mistake. Now I'm spacing. Well, I should have just gone with it. Give me 2 seconds to think about what this, as I read the definition of market value, oh, I got it. I remember. Right here, it says as a specific date of time. So when an appraiser goes to the house to appraise it, that's the date they're valuing it at. They are trying to determine a snapshot in time, what this property is worth today. So I have agents who will reach out to me and be like, hey, I know our comps aren't great, but we have a sale happening next week that's a phenomenal sale and it totally justifies our contract price. And as an appraiser, I have to say, you know, I'm sorry, like, oh, I can't use a sale that happens in the future. Like, even if it closes, even if I'm appraising it and something closed a week from now, if I used a sale that closed a week after what's called my effective date, the bank comes and they say, hey, what the heck are you doing? Like, that's not okay. And so don't use, whenever the appraiser comes to your house, the house that you're working on, that's the date that it will be valued as. Anything that comes after, any sales that happen after are not going to be considered in that appraisal process. If the appraiser came back for some reason, I don't know why that would happen, they could have a new effective date, but it's always based on the date they inspected the property. That leads me into another common mistake. People and investors and agents alike, and other people like us, they look at the active listings. We had this happen, so it was really difficult. In the last 18 months, 2 years, a lot of us were there. We saw what the market did. It went crazy. It went almost straight up, right? Here in Phoenix, we had like a 30% increase in value in a single year. Dustin up in Boise, I'm always tracking the states and how they're appreciating because that's part of my job. I have to study market trends. And up there in Boise, they were leading the chart for the last couple of years of highest appreciating market. It was just going crazy up there. And so what I'd have as an appraiser, I'd have all these sales. I'd have my property I'm appraising, which went under contract $50,000 above all my closed sales. And then I'd have active listings above that. And that was a very difficult situation. There's some things you can do as an appraiser to try to account for those market trends. You can do time adjustments, but you have to rely on historical data. It's a current value based on historical data. And so active sales as an appraiser, you can't put a lot of weight on those. You give them consideration as substitutes for your house, but you're not able to place a lot of weight. So, because I mean, think about it. Think about it this way. If I listed my house tomorrow and I said, I'm gonna list my house for 1.5 million, and my house is not worth 1.5 million, I might list it there and it might sit on the market for 3 years and never sell. And so as an appraiser, when I look at actives, they're not confirmed data points that I can rely on. They're just simply out there. They're given some consideration, but they're not given weight. So if you're ever looking at comps, don't look at your active sales. Pending sales are a little better, but they're still not closed. An appraiser can't give weight until it's closed. Actual hard, fast date or weight on in their valuation that they're working on. How are we doing on time? Do I need to answer any questions yet, or do I want to go through the rest of these frequent mistakes? Just keep going.
You're good. Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. Let me pull the spotlight back. How's everybody thinking? Let's get a consensus. I love the mistakes. Everybody else, how many people will align with maybe doing some of these yourself, falling into that trap? All right, everybody's muted, so your facial expressions tell me, yeah, let's continue. There we go. There you go. You guys can unmute. Mr. Carlos, you're unmuted already. How are you feeling about that? I love where we're going with this, guys. We can go over, we already kind of gone over a bit of the downside, obviously the things that we don't want to do. We can definitely go into the things that we do want to do when comping. And so
I
that we-
think that we should definitely have a couple questions. I know that other people have questions. I know that Jason has his hand up. I think it should be
Yeah,
good.
no,
Like
I've
it should be interactive for sure.
Yeah, I do want to make sure that, as we get interactive, we can lose a lot of opportunity to cover the specifics of, obviously what Hunter's expertise is in, and get into the weeds. I have, Winnie, I at least want to go through and let's see if we can, respect your time and go over, obviously the topmost like go-tos on win comping. That'll get you the best potential for actually having a legitimate comp, especially as, we're having less wiggle room for error whenever we're actually trying to, find a buyer or a lender for our comps. And I have several people marking down the questions so that we don't get people left behind. They're putting it into a list so we can resurface those once they come back around. How does that sound, Hunter? We go through some of the.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll take, what time?
You're able to share too. If you have anything that's visual that would help
Yeah.
you, we'll be able to share.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen here in just a second. Yeah, let's get into that. I'm not used to just talking. So that's why I kind of want to break it up and talk for a second because when I'm just talking at a screen, like, I don't know if what I'm saying is helpful to anybody, and so it is nice obviously to have that interaction. So, but what I'll do is I'll cover the rest of those. I'll cover some of the key things to look at when you are comping, right? We're covering some of the no's, right? Because that's relatable to some of us. And that's helpful too. Learning what not to do is also helpful. And then I'll share a screen share and I'll show a few slides and we'll dive into what to do and how to find good comparables and determine an accurate version of market value. And then we'll go into some Q&A. I think we have, what time do you say, Dustin? We have like an hour?
You have enough
or less
time.
than an
You have
hour?
enough time. We could, yeah, you
Oh,
have
yeah,
enough.
we're usually on this thing actually for like another 2-3 hours. So you're good. We're just respecting your time right now, man.
Perfect. Well, yeah, so
As
I
much time
penciled-
as you need. As much time as you need.
Okay, yeah, no, I penciled in when Dustin and I talked, so I've got another like 45 minutes. And if we go
Okay.
that long, if we go a little over, that's okay with me. If we have some good questions and I feel like I'm actually, because if there's other things you guys need to cover today that's valuable, I don't want to take away from that. But if I'm adding value and it's helpful, like I'm happy to stick around and answer some questions. So let's get into this.
Hey,
Last,
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, everybody keep throwing the questions in the side chat. I'm taking them down, and we're gonna run through them in the order that we got them.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay, I'll jump back in. I've got three more common mistakes. New builds versus older homes. When you're pulling comparables, you want to be roughly within 10 years of whatever your year built is. Think about it this way. The technology we're using today, very different than the 1800s, right? We're not out there laying stones anymore, right? When we build houses. Same thing happens even in a 10-year period. The techniques that contractors use change, the materials that are used change. On that mobile home I just wrapped up the flip, anybody who's ever done a flip with polybutylene knows it's an absolute nightmare. We had to do a complete repipe. We repiped every water line in the property, which wasn't originally part of the plan because somebody had gone and stubbed in some PVC. And so we thought, hey, somebody's already done it. And then you start ripping out showers, you start redoing stuff, and no, they made it look like they had done it. And polybutylene is not even insurable. Like insurance won't cover damage caused by polybutylene. And so obviously as building materials change, that's not okay to use anymore. And so houses have different life expectancies, et cetera. And so you need to be using homes that are within its own generation, usually within 5 years, either direction, you're gonna have a pretty good idea. What I see, once again, you might have a neighborhood that had a couple infill lots. Infill lot meaning it's a lot, they built out a neighborhood, they built out a subdivision, and they left a couple lots empty. And now all of a sudden market's hot again, and somebody goes and builds a new build there. And so now I get a lead. Somebody calls me, I've got a hot lead, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, there's a comp in there that's like $80,000 above all my other comps. Like, I'm gonna say that's my best comp. I'm gonna determine ARV there. Come to find out that house was built in 2019 and my house was built in 1960. Even if the square footage is similar, that's not a great, locationally great. You might even have a recent sale, but when it comes down to it, they're not that similar in a lot of other aspects. And so, like I said, this depends. If there's nothing else, right? That's the only sale you have. It is a data point, and then you try to adjust for the quality of the houses, the condition of the houses, all those type of things. And appraisers, we won't spend too much time on adjustments today. but it's hard to find a perfect comp. You guys all know that. And so an appraiser studies the market. What does the market pay for a pool? What does the market pay for this kind of a finish? What does the market pay for, you know, all these different things that have to be accounted for. Location, right? This house backs a freeway, this one doesn't. What is the adverse, you know, consequence of that? So new builds versus older homes, try not to use them. I would say don't use them because they're not that comparable. Try to find other homes like yours that have been updated. Even if that other sale looks really appealing, it's just kind of going back to don't justify your ARV. Don't try to hit that ARV you want it to be. Go in there unbiased, go in there unassuming, and try to determine what is the market actually willing to pay for this house. Because at the end of the day, you want to do right. If you're wholesaling, you want to do right by your fix and flippers. You want to do right by your buy and hold people. And the reason being is you want to do business with them a long time. Anybody who wants to make a buck one time with one person, they're not going to be in business very long. You want to make a buck off them today, tomorrow, the next day, and you want them to make money off of you every single day. And you want to build as many of those relationships as possible to be successful. And so if you go out there and you tell a new fix and flipper on their first deal, ARV is this, and they don't know what they're doing, and they buy that deal using hard money, and there was no appraisal, there was no somebody to keep them safe and protect them, they get screwed. They lose money on the deal, and they're not going to fix and flip anymore, and they're going to have a bad taste in their mouth, and they're definitely not coming back to you after that. I mean, it comes back on them, right? They should know how to do their job too, but you don't want to do business like that. And so try to learn the very best you can on how to really determine market value. It'll serve you extremely well. Going outside the subdivision, we've touched on that. If you've got sales in your subdivision, use those comps. Don't go to the neighborhood next door just because the sales are 5% higher and you can pull those comps and justify a higher price. We've already beat that to death. Location, I talked about that a little bit. I'll hit location with I'm gonna go ahead and do a screen share. Let's get this pulled up. All right, can you guys see that all right? We're still in that definition of market value slide. Okay. Drink some more water. All righty. We already read that. This is funny if you're an agent or if you do a lot of retail stuff. People hate appraisers. I always talk to my appraisers buddies. I'm like, dude, why do we do this? Like, nobody likes us. The bank doesn't like us. The buyer doesn't like us. The seller doesn't like us. Like, we have a thankless job. We're just this thorn that has been inserted into the side of society. And we get paid a very marginal amount for what we do. I mean, if you put it into consideration, an agent makes about 3% on the transaction. Loan origination is about the same. I read this article, bugged me a little bit. They talked about how between 2020 and 2022, the money made by agents and loan originators like exponentially increased. Like, everybody's wages went up because the values went up and everyone gets paid on percentage of value. Appraisers, we don't get that because it's biased, right? If we appraise a property for $800,000 and we're getting paid a percentage of that deal, we are incentivized to appraise higher to make more money, right? It creates a bad conflict of interest. So everyone's getting paid way more. Everyone's making bank. I work in an office. There's a big mortgage broker right here in my complex where I rent a couple offices at. And I do work for them, and I see all their young LOs rolling up the last 2 years. They're pulling up in like a super nice tricked out AT4. One of them bought a nice BMW. And here's me. I'm like freaking working my tail off, and I still make the same $400 in appraisal that I've always made. The job's just harder because the market's appreciating so quickly, and I'm stuck tied to historical data. And everyone's pissed at me all the time because values are coming in low. And then I'm calling all my appraisers like, dude, are you coming in low on half your deals? And they're like, yeah, it freaking sucks. Everyone's calling me and yelling at me. So why I chose this profession, one purpose, means to an end. I knew I need to be really, really good at valuing properties so I could be an extremely good investor. And that's why I did it. Anyway, so people sit on pins and needles just hoping the value comes in. And when it comes in good, everyone's happy. And I guess that's the one time people are happy. So I guess you do get a little bit, nobody ever thanks you, but they will be happy. Definition of market value, couple things. This is what we're talking about, some of the key indicators. This is what's going to be helpful for you when you comp properties. Location, we've hit on that one a lot already. Pick properties that are as close to you as possible. Pick properties that are proximal. I mean, here's the reason being. different areas. I'll speak from here in Phoenix. There's a really, anybody throw it in the side chat if you've been to Scottsdale. Anyone ever been to Scottsdale? Maybe just even raise your hand, give me a thumbs up, a nod. Anyone been to Scottsdale, Arizona? It's a nice place, right? Values are very, very high, right? It's an expensive place to live. There's a spot just west of Scottsdale called Arcadia. Beautiful, beautiful area. It's right in the shadow of Camelback Mountain. And there's this canal that goes right there through Arcadia. And on the north side of the canal, your home sales prices are $2, $3, $4, $5 million, right? South of the canal, literally, I can stand on one side of the canal, I can throw a rock. And if I have one house that is identical on this side of the canal, I jump over the canal, that same house from $1 million to a $2 million house, I kid you not. You can see the houses. You can stand on one house and see the other house, identical. And obviously that's one of the very few areas in Phoenix. Most places you jump over to the next neighborhood over, you're going to be within a couple percentage points of what your, a couple percent of what their value is. So as proximal as possible is a big thing. Size of lot. So if you have a 7,000 square foot lot and somebody else has a half acre, different, right? Even if the specs of the home are the same, the value is different, right? That contributory value that comes from that excess land is important. In addition, the zoning is likely different, which gives them different rights of what they can do with your property. Each of us that own property, we have a bundle of rights that are associated with that property. We can only do certain things with it, and a lot of it comes down to zoning. Like, what are we legally allowed to do? If I have a property, it's in an HOA and it's zoned single family, I can't knock it down tomorrow and throw up, a fourplex there. The city won't allow it. So pay attention to your site sizes, pay attention to your views. This is both positive and negative. This is where I'm from, the St. George, beautiful community called Stonecliff. They have some of these houses up here that have, 180 degree views. Absolutely beautiful. And the opposite can also be true when you have views like, I skip over that one. There it is. This is a picture, I believe this is taken in Las Vegas. I could be wrong on this, don't quote me. But you got a townhouse backing, a freeway. Those views are obviously very different. So you might have this house backing the freeway, and all the way on the other side of the subdivision, you might have the same townhome that does not have that same view. And typically the market is willing to pay more to have a little bit more appealing view. We'll touch on that a little bit more. The kind of house that you're dealing with, those differences in value change. For example, you have a starter home, kind of like that townhome. The typical buyer doesn't care as much about the view. They just care that they're getting an affordable home. They're early in their career maybe, and they just want a safe place for their kids to lay down at night. However, so if they have a freeway in the backyard, not their favorite thing, but it's not going to be drastic what they're willing to pay different for it. You jump up to that first house I showed you, the multi-million-dollar house in Stonecliff. And if that house backs power lines, if that house backs a busy freeway, that house is significantly less valuable, even if the specs are the same. Even if they're both 3,000 square foot ranch style homes, they will sell, drastically different, because one of them has what's called a negative externality. It's got something external from the property itself that is impacting and influencing the value. So that's view, kind of touches on location a little bit. Design, we can jump into design a little bit. We already touched on Rambler versus two-story, kind of illustrating my point again. Quality of home. Obviously, these are kind of similar. They both have a craftsman-ish style finish. Appraisers rate things, and I don't want to get into this too much. They have to rate what quality the house is. Most homes are going to fall in a Q3, Q4 home, meaning that they're typically built standard materials, and that's their quality. Q1s, you're talking multiple millions. Q2s, you're talking over $1 million usually. Q5s, Q6s, I mean, these are little, 600 square foot boxes that most people won't even touch anymore because they're outdated. The market isn't interested in those in most areas. So don't compare those two things, right? Don't take your Q4 or your little old craftsman style and say, well, this is a craftsman 3 streets over, like it's the same. It's not the same. Same thing with age, right? That's kind of just an over illustration. And we've already talked about age. We've kind of beat that to death. Coming back here, condition of your home. Condition isn't as important for us as investors because a lot of us are doing an ARV. We're assuming the condition has been updated. We're assuming it's not an as is condition. What it is today is going to be different than what it is tomorrow when it's been fixed and flipped. Bedroom, bathroom counts. You want, I mean, ideally, right, you want your comp to be as similar as possible to your own home. So if you've got a 3-bed, 2-bath, try to find 3-bed, 2 baths. As you go smaller in bedroom, bathroom counts, if you have a 1-bedroom house, there's a big difference between a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, even if they're both 1,000 square feet, because it has another room, right? Another bedroom. When you get into houses that are 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, people don't really care about room count anymore because they don't need that many bedrooms. They care about the size of the house, square footage. That's GLA. If you ever hear the term GLA, that's gross living area. That is what an appraiser qualifies as livable space. I have a lot of fix and flippers here in Phoenix, which sucks. To be considered GLA, if you're doing an addition on a property, an appraiser has all their regulations they have to follow too. The property must be have interior access. So I'll have a lot of people who will build like a casita or something, and they're like, this is GLA. It's not. As an appraiser, if it doesn't have access from the interior of the home, a permanent heat source, and similar finish as the rest of the home, you can't call it GLA, gross living area, which means you're not going to give it the same value as you would the rest of the house. So if you do an addition, make sure you talk to an appraiser, talk to somebody, say, hey, what do I need to do to make sure this actually gets counted as additional square footage and I get the full number? You're going to get value, right? But you're not going to get the full number. And the reason being is appraisers run studies, they run a regression analysis, and they study all these things, and they find out that, you know, the market, if it's an inferior finish, it doesn't have a permanent heat source, the market typically is going to pay less for that piece of that space in the house as if it was typical, normal, functioning gross living area. Heating and cooling, same thing, right? If you have an evap cooler and somebody else has got central air, it's going to make a difference. Landscaping and fences, right? The nicer your landscaping, it's going to be worth more. And so that's kind of just getting into more nitty gritty. The big things that you can't change on a comp are it's going to be its location, it's going to be what kind of condition it's in, those type of things. So let me see if I have anything else specific that I want to dive into. I feel like I've given a very big general, like I've covered a lot of space and covered a lot of general information. I haven't gotten too nitty gritty. As an appraiser, when I have to do an as-is value, it's the worst when you walk into a house like here on the left, because stuff like that doesn't sell on the retail market. I walked into a house right down there by downtown Phoenix, and I kid you not, I feel terrible because there's like little kids' toys in there. So I know somebody's been living there, and it's a house built on block and pier, and there are sizable holes in the floor. Like you can fall into the crawl space. And as an appraiser, like this sale should not happen on the retail. It should not be on the MLS because banks will not finance over here conditions C1 through C6. If you are lower than a C5, lower than a C4, if you're C5 or C6 condition, a bank will not lend on that house. So whose job is it? It's us as investors. People are always, talking trash on wholesalers, fix and flippers, saying they're scum or whatever. That's a joke. You literally can't sell a house in C5 condition on the retail market. It has to be a cash transaction. And so there's a very important role that we as investors play in the market. So don't let anybody tell you different. Let's see, let's click through a couple more of these. Bedroom, bathroom count. This is into adjustments, right? Different markets pay different things for bedrooms, bathrooms, and appraisers account for all those things. Basements are given value. Typically in most markets, slightly less than above grade. In Phoenix, it's about equal because it's so much cheaper to cool a basement here, and we just don't have very many of them. Most basements are built to get below the frost line. Up in Idaho, probably everything's got a basement because you got to pour such a thick foundation anyway to like just slap a basement on there and get below the frost line so we don't have our house moving. More on gross living area, some basic adjustments, calculating GLA, we already touched on that. Basement adjustments. This is from, in Utah, it's usually about 40 to 70%. I'm licensed in both Utah and Arizona as an appraiser. Garages, this has changed recently. Garages have gotten way more valuable. Everything has just gone up, right? You guys have seen that over the last 2 years. Everything's way more expensive. Here's a good one, solar panels. I don't know about you guys, but as a wholesaler, solar panels can be a nightmare to deal with. And what's funny is I actually worked for a solar company in college, not as a sales rep, but as a guy who was in the office taking the like qualifying people for their loan, helping the sales rep, kind of close the deal, doing their paperwork. That was my job, scheduling their site survey. And it's funny because every sales rep, this is before I became an appraiser, they're like, man, it's going to add value to your home. Your house is going to be more valuable when you do solar. Not always the case. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to understand the retail process, most mortgage brokers, mortgage companies, they're writing you the loan and then they are selling it on the back end to a big buyer. Some of them are like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're big government supported buyers on most mortgages. The rest of them are packaged up in a deal, sold to Wall Street. And Wall Street, has them in some type of investment that you can go invest in. Solar panels, if they are, so why I shared that is because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, since they buy most of these mortgages, they write the rules. Appraisers don't come up with these rules, they just follow them. So if you have leased solar panels, appraiser is not allowed to give it value. If you have owned solar panels and you have a loan on those solar panels, appraiser doesn't give that any value. Don't factor that. If it is owned free and clear, the appraiser can give that value, and then it's market specific. And I'll tell you what, from my experience, it's never what they pay for it. Kind of like a pool. Very commonly, it costs so much money to build pools right now. It's insane. But a couple years ago, it cost you 40 grand to build a pool, and the appraiser is only going to give you 20. For whatever reason, when you study the market, a buyer, if they're looking at your house and an identical house, one has a pool, one doesn't, the typical buyer is willing to pay, 20 grand more for that house with the pool. But if you're listed 50, 60 grand above, even though that's the price of a pool, typical buyer is not going to buy that house. They'll buy the cheaper house thinking, hey, down the road, we'll add a pool. All things that get considered. That's solar, porches, patios, depending on how nice they are, you get different values. Landscaping, same thing, right? The one on the right is different than the one on the left. This costs a lot more money. Market will pay more for it. Same thing, kind of reiterating pools. We just touched on, look at that cost of pool compared to what the pool contributes. And once again, it goes by price point. You're dealing with $1 million houses. They're going to pay a lot more for a pool. That's the basics. That really kind of covers just a good, huge overview. Just like everything in real estate, right? Everyone always preaches, hey, real estate's simple. Generate leads, get contracts, make money. And then you get into it, it's like there's a million different things that go into everything. Appraising is simple, comping is simple. There's a million different ways you can go with, different things you can dive into, but the basics, if you can learn the fundamentals, that's going to serve you and that's going to be invaluable. So that's all I got. Turn it back over to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Turn it back over to Dustin or Carlos or whoever's got the floor.
Wow, man, that's fire. Who got some good value from that shit? That was fire. I looked at it a lot different than I thought. I comped pretty well. That was pretty good, man. Thank you so much for spending this time out here and bringing this value and this information. I know everybody should be surprised. Probably everybody was probably not as detailed in our comping analysis as you are. So thank you so much, man.
Happy to help. And it was funny when I was generating some leads for a wholesaler once, and it was so funny. I pull 6 comps because an appraiser, you usually use 3 to 4 closed sales and 2 active listings. And I'm sending this guy, he's the dispo guy. I'm like, hey, ARV's this, here's 6 comps. And he's like, dude, send me 1 comp, send me the best comp. And I realized that appraisers, we have to factor all these different variables. And a lot of times it's not unnecessary, but when you're trying to figure out if a lead is a deal, you don't have to spend an hour. Most appraisals take 3-4 hours to do. You don't need to spend, you can't afford to spend that time when you're comping, and you don't need to, right? That's a waste of your time. When I comp properties for investing, I don't spend more than 1 to 2 minutes, because in that time I can determine if it's in the ballpark, and that's really what you need to know. So don't hear all this and then be like, man, I got to spend 3 hours every time I comp. Dude, don't do that. It's a way. I don't even comp a property until I've talked to a lead and they are motivated to sell, because it's a waste of my time. And then they ask me, hey, what will you offer? I say, honestly, I haven't even comped your property yet. I don't even know what I can offer. I just had to find out. I don't say that, but I just had to find out if you're even willing to sell, if you're motivated, if you're ready, if you have some idea what you want to sell for, and if you're ready to move forward. And then if they give me the yes on that, I move forward. I comp the deal. I put together a couple different options and we go from there. But don't waste all your time. Don't waste all your time.
Fire. So let's get into some Q&A if you got some time. You got time,
Yeah, I
right?
got about 30 minutes. So
Sweet, sweet. So Jason, since you have everything written down, like either one, we can just have you ask all the questions, keep it simple since you have it laid out, or we can have each individual ask the question. It don't matter.
I think, yeah, let's get some people some voice time. Let's put everybody that has a question or has asked a question, go ahead and throw your hands up. I'm sure we're gonna have like 1 or 2 pages of hands. You can do that inside the bottom little reactions. If you click it, there's a raise hand.
Hunter out here busting shots. Good stuff, man. That's why it's good to be able to focus on something that you're good at and put a lot of time into it, because the amount of value you see from somebody who knows how to do it correctly, it's just mind-blowing compared to what we think that we were doing the whole time correctly. Fire, brings some value, comes here. It's great stuff for us to learn from, you know. So everybody also, you know, you follow him on his social media, get his number, text him your name and number. And if you guys need help with anything, vice versa. Cool. Let's do this. Let's go in order with these questions. So Jason, you've had your hand up for like the longest time, my man. You go first. You're on mute, Jason.
Hold on a sec. That might be me.
Oh,
I turned things off so they can unmute as people came in, so we didn't have anything kind of popping up. There we go, Jason, you're good.
Yo, what's up, Hunter?
hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. So I was taking down all the questions here. Just from the side chat, I got 14 questions. I didn't know if you wanted me to, because I know there's some other people who have their hands up as well. I didn't know if you wanted me to just copy and paste these into a direct message to you, and then you can just kind of answer them, or however you want to do it.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
So you can actually just throw that in the chat, just the recent questions. Everybody could see it. Go ahead and everybody raise your hand inside of here. I only see 2 hands up right now. Raise your hands with questions. And then if we don't reach any, if everybody asks the questions, we get it answered, and we still have a couple that are just lingering around that haven't been answered, we'll dive into those. So let's just do it that way. Let's get some people some FaceTime, get some interaction, and let them elaborate on their question a little bit.
All right. Here's the first set. I didn't think it was going to do that.
Oh, you're good. Just go ahead and
Here, I'll break them down one by one. It bunched it all together.
we'll go ahead and drop your hand. Duran's next. We'll go ahead and have Duran kind of pop in. And you can just paste that in the chat whenever you're
or
ready.
Jason, I think you had a question though in the beginning, right? So you might as well just ask that question up front.
Oh yeah, if you had one, yeah.
Yeah, the only question that I had was, is there a way that we may be able to pull a random address and just kind of do a live one? You know, just something quick.
You can go
I'm
through.
down. You got a Phoenix address? That's gonna be the fastest. I mean, I can do it on Privy. I'm just kind of slow on Privy. I haven't spent enough time. I mean, I can pull up a random address too, but if you
Phoenix
oh, you
address
said no,
that gets
Dustin?
dropped.
What was that?
Yeah, I don't have
I
addresses.
saw Dustin shaking his hand. So do you want to, what do you think, Dustin, on that? Do you want to do that? Do you want to answer some
I'm
questions,
done.
then look at that if we got time?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's see what's everybody's idea. You can unmute yourself and tell me what you want to do, guys. I want to let you guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, how you doing? Yes, I want to say, first of all this content is amazing. I gotta say, my friend Dan from 10X, he said that you guys are amazing, and wow, yeah, 10X, yes, brother. I'm absolutely wow, amazing content. So, I just see in the content. I have a friend who's over in Phoenix. She is a sales agent. Instead of selling houses like so basically what she does is she sells houses that are considered new construction. So I know in her area, you know, in Chandler, some areas could be over 600K, right?
Oh yeah, that's super. I mean, our medium house price is, I mean, right now I think it dropped back down to like 480, but I mean, pretty much the cheapest house that you'll find here, like a 1950 box that's 1,000 square feet. I don't know what markets you guys are in, but it's like $300,000.
Wow.
So your typical 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,800 square foot home, right around $500,000 here in Phoenix.
Wow. Okay.
There's a couple Phoenix addresses right there. Boom, Mesa
Yeah,
and
we'll have to
Phoenix.
Should hit one of those for sure.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was-
we
I
got
was just
Phoenix.
going to say that.
Thank you, Johan. Thank you, Sean.
What was that the question? Just the price of homes in Phoenix? Did I catch that right? Or what was the question?
Yeah, that was the question, just to see if we can just do a quick one real quick. That was one of the questions. And then I tried putting these in the side chat, but for some reason they're just not coming out right. They're being all jumbled up. So I'm just going to slide them in a little bit at a time. If everybody can give the side chat a break just a minute so I can put all the questions in there and keep them
Wait,
together.
I have one. This property, it's in pre-foreclosure. And the lady, her husband passed away. It's a multifamily. He started a second multifamily. It sits on a 24-acre lot. I comped it. There's no comps. The lady wants to do a subject to. She was $50,000. I took it to two people. They don't want it. There's no comps. And, you know, the second group home, there's a lot of, it's 75% complete. So the lady's in trouble. I want to see if you can look at it and see if there's something we can do with it, considering there's no comps.
You said it's 24 acres. Is that what you said it's sitting on?
Yes, yes, it sits on 24 acres. Here, I'm gonna
Where's-
share my screen. Just a moment.
Here, hold on. So let's try. We got a limited time here, guys. So let's just try and keep things to a very
And that one, I was gonna say, I'm happy to obviously answer any question, but that one is gonna be very, very unique. And that's an appraisal that takes a long time because you're studying, you gotta go down all the way to the zoning, right? Can they subdivide it? What's its highest and best use? And so maybe that's one that you can hit, you can reach out to me offline and we can tackle. And then maybe we can bring that back to the group or something like that and just kind of show them, hey, here's what we did, here's how we approached it. Because that one will take some serious time, because if you're not seeing any comps, chances are I'm not going to see any comps right away until you spend more time. And if it's in a small rural area, which typically when they're on 24 acres, they are, very few sales in any community. And you're usually having to look at other small cities, and that does take some time. So maybe we can hit that one offline.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
So
Hey, Yoli, there's a couple of people that want to help you in the side chat. They want to get your information. So drop your cell phone number so they can text you.
Okay, thank you.
So I just dropped two addresses. There's the Right Way in Mesa, and then there's one in Phoenix. We can definitely, if you think we could spend like maybe 5-10 minutes on this or something, then we can get back into questions. That'd be awesome.
Let's hit it. Let me get a couple things pulled up. I'll share my screen. We'll just do it live.
Awesome, man.
Give me just a second. Oh, somebody's giving me a burn house. I've seen that. I've actually looked at that house before. So, in a second. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen.
Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Move to the bottom on me. Okay. All right, you guys all see this over here? Okay.
Yes.
So what I do in my market, we all use different tools. So here we have something called Monsoon. Basically gives you a similar view as like a prop stream. Shows mortgage information if they have it, shows transfer history. That's something else you guys probably didn't know. Appraisers have to note every time a property is transferred, if it's the subject, anytime in the last 3 years, they say who it went from and who it went to and how much it sold for 3 years for your subject. And for any of your comps, you have to do it for a single year. And the reason being is they want to see, because back in 2008, 2007, what happened is all of us get together, we're all buddies, and we say, hey, Carlos, I'm going to flip you this property, and then you flip it back to me, and then we'll flip it again because we've got this other deal over here that we want a good comp for. So let's keep flipping it back and forth to each other. And the bank said, that's not going to happen anymore. So appraisers note all that information, because if they see that going on, they're going to throw that out. They're not going to count that because it's not representative of the market. Anyway, side tangent. Okay, let's jump on this one right here. Captain Dreyfus. Am I saying that right?
That sounds like something that Zillow's iBuying did.
Zillow got wrecked here in Phoenix. I don't know about everywhere else, but they got annihilated. And I don't know if anybody else got Open Door in their market, but they're getting absolutely slaughtered right now. Every listing I see, I mean, half of our listings are Open Door right now on our MLS, and all of them are 50 to 100 grand below what they paid for
Need to get mine over there then.
them. Yeah, for real. But it's because they overpaid. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pull my MLS number, or if you're privy, you're just going to throw it in your address. I'm going to open up my MLS. I'm going to drop that in there. I'll kind of narrate as I'm going. And so what I'm looking at is immediately I can see, right? I'm just getting a little aerial view. These homes right here, obviously built in a different time frame. These houses right here, probably my better comparables. Anyway, so just something you can keep in. You can, I mean, once you get good at it, you can see that just by looking at their roofs, right? You can totally tell that these were built at a different time, different technology. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my property pulled up. Let me make this full sized. Got everything kind of changed up on me for a minute. I must have hit some setting when I'm on Zoom that's only allowing me. So give me a second. But anyway, you can pull as far as a mile, right? In theory. But obviously that's a pretty big radius. You want to always stay within a mile, but there's going to be a million sales. And so what I prefer to do is, if you have this ability, you can just search by neighborhood specifically, like exactly its subdivision. If you don't, I would just draw, I would come in here, I'll say, okay, let's get started. Let's just draw this little area, because we can tell that these were probably all built around the same time. So you can do that. So we'll start with that. I'm going to go here. I'm going to nix that. There's Captain Dreyfus. Edit. Let's go close. And every software you search is going to be different. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So I'm looking for closed sales. I'm looking in the last 90 days. There's been 2 in my neighborhood in the last 90 days. One for 350, one for 440. And let's take a look. So we're quite a bit bigger, right? So 286, we've got this one that just sold last month. It's a 4.2, so that's helpful to us. It is bigger than I would normally like. Age is good, proximity is good. So this is a decent comp. You can tell that it's been fixed and flipped, right? This house doesn't just look like that. It's built in the 60s. Right, so somebody came in here and did a nice job. So this is a great one to compare it to, right? If you look at their appeal, the curb appeal, their design, very, very similar. Here, the biggest difference is you can tell right away that this was a very similar house at one point, but in our subject, they have enclosed this covered patio and made it more square footage. That's why this house is bigger than this house. But off the bat, I know I'm likely going to be somewhere around this 440 mark. I'm guessing this one probably was not updated. Look at that. So when you're determining ARV, are you going to even bother with this 350 comp? No, because it's not fixed and flipped. You want to know an as repaired value. So we're not even going to worry about that guy. We're going to get rid of it. Now, before moving on to expand my search, I'm looking for 3 closed sales to help me pin down my value in most situations. And as an appraiser, you have to bracket everything. You got to have something bigger, something smaller, something newer, something older. If you're backing an externality, you have to have something that also brackets that feature. As an appraiser, like I said, that's why it takes hours. You have to encompass all possible, ideally all possible factors that are going to influence the value. So we're going to go now to properties that are listed, actives. Okay, that gives me even more insight into the property. Once again, these aren't great comps, but you can immediately tell, check this out. It's not as nice, right? I was thinking that was going to tell you the market had gone down because it's $40,000 less. And sorry, I'm clicking through these photos fast. Like I said, I look at hundreds of properties every day. Maybe not every day. Maybe not hundreds is a lot. So anyway, I look at a lot of properties every day. And so you just fly. I remember the first time I saw an appraiser do this, I thought I was going to have like a seizure from epilepsy or something, because he clicks through the photos so fast. Because as an appraiser, you've seen every house already. Like there's only so much variety to homes. You just put the bathroom over here or the bedroom over here, it's all the same. All right, so back to comping. I've got my listing. We've got this one sitting. This one was done really high end. It's got a garage. And so right now, immediately, just like what all of you run into, are we finding the perfect comp? No, we're not. We're not even close. We're finding things that are all similar, but are going to have to be factored for. So now we're going to expand our search parameter out a mile. And what I'm going to do is I don't like to cross major, like a freeway, for example. If I don't have to, I'm not going to. So I'm going to come and I'm just going to draw myself a nice little square here, or not a square, a trapezoid, I guess. Ditch my circle. And then I'm going to go closed 90 days. And I'm going to go approximate square feet. I'm going to need something. We need something to bracket our size. So we're going to probably cap us out at 2,000 square feet. A lot of these homes in this area are going to be smaller than this subject, right? No house is a perfect comp, because if it would have been a 1,300 square foot house, we'd be done already. But no, they did an addition. They added square footage. We need to bracket that. So we're going to go year built. We're built in the 60s. We don't want anything higher than the 80s. And we're just narrowing things down. We don't want anything that's a 2-story, which we're probably not going to have that in this area anyway. We're down to 7 sales. What do we got? We got an 1,800 square footer there. 4.2. We got a 1,700 square foot, 4.2 there. Built in the 70s, built in the late 60s. This one was sold by Open Door, which I don't always like because they are not always representative of the market. Clearview, that's a 4.2, but it's got a pool. Down there, where are other comps we pulled? That one's up there, back in the freeway. And this one's close by. I like that comp. Pull some things around. It's not updated, so it's not a good comp, and it's got a pool. This one's updated, right? So this comp's no longer good. Sold because it had a pool. It's just not a great comp. See who it sold from. I'm gonna ditch that. Anyway, so I'm not going to spend a ton more time on this, but you've got a couple comparables, and right, you're trying to find stuff that's as similar as possible. And this one does have similar-ish finishes. Something else is it doesn't have any carport or anything to house. It looks like they've done an addition, and you're trying to find an addition like that. What's different about this is it backs the freeway, and so you're going to have to make an adjustment saying, hey, if this didn't back the freeway, it's going to be worth more money. And so pretty comfortably right off the bat, I know that this property is going to be in the ballpark between 4 and probably 450 pretty quickly off the bat. It could be more if you spend more time and you look at more comparables. At this one, like I said, the further you move away, I'm hesitant because there's just in Phoenix, like I said, there's the closer the better, because there really are pockets that sell for a lot more. And so you can get yourself in trouble sometimes. So let's see. So yeah, so I mean, this obviously is an outlier. It sold for, I mean, it's sold for the top dollar. And that's when you would start looking at this neighborhood. Both of these sold for $499 and $530. So obviously something is telling me that for whatever reason, stuff over here is selling for more than stuff in this area, right? I would say this would normally be a decent comp, but because it sold through Open Door, it's usually not great. Look what Open Door paid for it. They paid $531,000 for this house in June, and they just lost $71,000 on this sale. And so I see a lot of people like these big companies that are swooping them up from Open Door, thinking they're getting a steal because Open Door just lost 70 grand, but they still might be overpaying because Open Door paid so much more. Like I said, this house could be over 450 if we dug into it deeper. We could drop this one back off and look at 180 days here in the subdivision. Obviously, we got nothing this big, and so we're going to drop that. And all these things are just giving us ideas of what's selling. And we can see that, you know what, 6 months ago, market was different. Check these sales, 550, 610. Like, I don't know about you guys, but here in Phoenix, I mean, we've dropped 15% easy in most areas. And so this 550 tells me, who knows, 450 might be low, but until you really dig into it, It's just hard to tell, right? But you can tell, but what you can know, right? Back to kind of trying to comp quickly, is if your ARV is 450 and you're dividing it, by two. Oh, you guys didn't see that. Sorry. I was calculating the percentage of ARV. What this sits at right now is about 63% ARV. But I mean, this house is going to need extensive work, right? Who knows if any of this is really salvageable. So picking it up for 63% ARV might not be that good of a deal. Anyway, let's jump back. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Somebody else dropped one. There's a mobile home. I'm in the middle of appraising a mobile home right down the street from here. We can spend time on that another time. I know we're getting kind of short on time. Let me stop that and get back. Was that helpful? I know that wasn't obviously, like, you guys are going to learn real quick. I mean, there's no pretty comps. Even as an appraiser, like, you don't just pull up and there's some great comp that the appraiser is going to find. They're going to find the same comps as you, pick the very best ones, and learn how to adjust for differences, right? Typically, the market, think about it this way, for that square footage difference, 1,300 square foot versus 1,800 square foot, most homes sell, between $200 and $300 a square foot here in Phoenix. If I'm looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath Rambler that's 1,350 square feet and one that's 1,500 square feet, but they both are 3-bed, 2-bath, same finishes, I'm not willing to pay another $200 per square foot just to have an extra 150 square feet, but I'm probably willing to pay $70, $80 a square foot. Does that make sense? And obviously, if you get too big, it's going to make a difference. But what are your thoughts? What's the feedback on that? Helpful or not helpful? I mean, that wasn't that pretty of one, but there was stuff. There was at least something to go off of. What are your thoughts?
Helpful.
Right, that was helpful, man.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Super helpful.
Hey, and the other questions I went ahead on and DM them to you because they were getting lost in the side chat.
Yeah, let me get those pulled up. I know I saved the chat at one point.
Okay.
Let's see if I can pull up the direct message. Now I'm not seeing it because it kind of moves up the way as well. So I'm just going to go back to the top.
Okay.
Oh, is there a way to pull up just my DMs directly?
You know what? I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out.
I don't think so.
So anyway,
Jim's just
go ahead. Yeah, they kind of go with it. So I can see all the direct messages from you. And so I'm going to kind of rapid fire answer some of these questions real quick. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Can we randomly pull up an address, run through one live? We just did that. I would love to do more of those in the future because, like I said, I was kind of getting rushed on that one because I know we were kind of getting short on time. We can definitely do more of that type of stuff because I do feel like real life examples. Because then if I broke down, once I actually dive it down, like these are the comps I'm going to pick and here's why, that's helpful to you guys. But the ones we looked at, those are the comps I was going to use and then adjust. Okay. What's the best way to find an appraiser locally? That's tough, dude. Appraisers are a weird breed. I get told, I was on the phone with an agent who's I'm working with right before this. And she's like, it's so weird that you're an appraiser. She said, you're personable, you talk to people, like that's not common from her experience. And that's been my experience. The average age of appraiser is 60 years old. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's kind of an old man's game. And so some are willing to help, but most just want to do their own thing. Most of them are one-man shops. So they're really busy because they don't outsource anything. I was telling Dustin, the reason I wanted to start growing my investing business legitimately is because I do about 4 or 5x what a typical appraiser does in my business. But under my license, I'm only allowed to offload so many tasks. I can never fully escape my appraisal company. And so, yeah, I'm glad it does great. And I'm really proud of it. I've worked hard on it, but you can never escape. And so most appraisers just go in knowing, hey, they're probably a one-man shop. They probably don't have time. And they don't think like we think. They don't think, hey, givers gain, right? They have karma, it reciprocates. So just go in. You're going to need to call a couple. Hop on Google, call them up. Try to find investor-friendly ones. That's kind of a rare breed too. You don't see a whole lot of them, but Google is really going to be your best shop for any old market. And if you really want to know, I mean, you can always offer, say, hey, would you do an appraisal for me? They'll usually charge you about $400. So don't do that unless you really need it. Like call me first. Like I can't, like Dustin said, legally, like when I'm having this Zoom chat and this call, I'm not acting as an appraiser. When I comp that house, if somebody goes and buys that and says, Hunter said ARV was 450 and markets come off since then and you sell for less than that, you lose money. Don't come back and sue me. Like I'm just disclaiming I'm acting as a friend, as an investor, because under my license, like if I give a value, like if I told you the value is X on this property, I have to keep a whole work file that I have to keep for 5 years. I have to pull county records, parcel maps, easements, everything. And then I got to keep it for 5 years. And if anyone ever tries to sue me, like I have to carry, insurance because that's my job. They put that much pressure on an appraiser because you're dealing with everybody's money. And that's why, it's a thankless job and it's a high pressure job for that reason. Being an investor is much more fun. So when you call me with questions, just know I'm going to answer it through my lens of experience, but as a friend, as an investor. So call me up and we'll look at stuff together. I'll at least tell you what an appraiser is going to look at, if nothing else. Even if I don't comp it for you or pull up, specifics, I can say, here's what they're going to go for, right? Okay. Building a new build on vacant land. I was taught the developer to locate. Okay, let's see. I was taught by a developer to locate other new builds in the area. That's great advice. So this guy's basically asking, trying to comp one that's a new build, find other new builds in the area. That's going to help you the most. Cost approach. Appraisers will do a cost approach on new builds, basically determining how much it's going to cost to actually build that property. And that can sometimes be factored. Most of the time, it's all sales comparison approach, which is what we learn as investors. So find other new builds. Yeah, they had added some more commentary on that and pretty accurate, just saying, hey, estimating ARV based on average reasonably sized home for the neighborhood. That's good advice. Still more stuff on land, lock up land, vacant land at 15% of value and then assign it for 17 to 18%. It's going to be area specific. That's pretty good. Most of the time what I see in my market is land value is about 22%. Anything over 30%, like if the land is worth more than 30% of the total value of the home, as an appraiser, I have to justify that to the bank. I got to say, hey, bank, like this is a gentrifying area. This house is only worth 500, but the land itself is worth 300 because they're going to knock that house down and build $1 million house. So, but general rule of thumb, between 15 and 30% of your property value is going to be your land value. And so, yeah, that's great. That sounds like sound advice based on what somebody said. Another one about pulling up a live address. Maybe we need to do more of those. Let's keep going rapid fire. Scroll down a little bit, more Q&As. Do you only consider sold homes in an area, or do you also consider active listings, days on markets to assess ARV? Great question. Weight I place on closed sales, but check this. If you've got a property under contract for $450 and you've got some closed sales at $450, but we've had a market change like we have, and I have the identical house or multiple of very similar competitive legitimate substitute homes that are all listed at 420 to 400. Guess what? As an appraiser, unless I have a really good reason to explain why, I cannot come in at 450 because they could just fall out of contract, buy a great substitute for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 less. So give them consideration, but don't place your weight on them. Like, understand that they're there and you need to pay attention to them. So that's the answer to that. Another question on new builds. Same answer right there. Look for other ones. What's happening is I'm rereading some of these questions because you sent them to me and then you sent them to everybody. So that's why I'm seeing double. Let's see. It's that. Locally, same stuff. I'm just kind of going back through. Should we avoid using Zillow, Redfin, etc. for comping? Use it with caution. Zillow, I've seen Zillow. It's the funniest thing. I've had a time where I've done my whole appraisal and I pull it up on Zillow and I'm like $2,000 different. But I've also had the exact opposite. I appraise it and Zillow was 80 grand high or 50 grand low. My favorite as an appraiser, because every homeowner looks at Zillow. And so when I'm doing an appraisal and I do my comps, I do everything, and my appraised value is above Zillow, I'm stoked because I'm like, that homeowner is going to be shocked on this refinance. They're going to be thrilled. They're going to love me. Finally, somebody will like me, So use it with caution. It's a good basis point. But remember, they're using a computer to average all the sales in the area. Those could be sales that are fire, like literally caught on fire, like this house, and those could be updated to the 9s. And they're just going to lump them all together, average them out, right? They use computers to assess that. So use it with caution. When there's only 2 good comps, apples to apples, and the buyer wants to see more comps before securing your contract, what do you suggest? Just be frank with them. Be like, bro, these are your best comps. That's what you got. I can go pull you a 3rd and 4th from 2 miles from here, and maybe don't. Obviously, when I say it, I'm going to be more direct with you guys. Don't say it like that to your buyer. Like, you obviously build a good relationship. That goes without saying. But if that's what they want, like, I don't have an issue. Just follow the principles, stay close, stay recent. If you got nothing else recent or close, you know, and you go outside, try to be super recent right now. Like, as an appraiser, if I can keep things in 90 days, I will all day. I don't even look at stuff from June and May right now. So if you're pulling comps, most appraisers aren't even gonna look at those because that was a totally different market than we're in today. Honestly, if I can use all sales from October and September, I will. So a lot of my appraisals I'm typing up right now, all the comps are from September, because that's a snapshot in time that is the most reflective of what's going on in the market today. And that's what banks want to see. And that's what appraisers are trained to do. What's the best way to do due diligence on a good appraiser? This is a great question because it's true. Take this, for example, anybody who went to high school or school, there's very different quality of students in any profession, in any career, in any school, right? I had kids in my accounting classes when I had to go back and get my degree, who I was like, dude, there's no way I will ever let that guy do my taxes. Cause he no offense, but he's not very good at what he's doing. And honestly, his personality type is he doesn't care. Like, I know if I sent him my taxes to do when he graduates, becomes a CPA, he's going to miss stuff. I don't trust that guy. Appraisers are no different. You know, you're going to have good ones, you're going to have bad ones. You're going to have ones that are inexperienced, and you're going to have ones that just want to prove something to the world, you know, and I hate to say that, but some that what they say is what goes, right? They're the law. That's far and few between. Most appraisers are trying their best to do, you know, the best that they can. So do your due diligence, ask lenders, call up a lender and say, hey, I'm looking just to get a private appraisal. What's your favorite, who's your favorite appraiser on your panel? I'd love to give them a call. I have lenders who refer me and I get private calls. I'm actually getting a call right now from, I'll call her back. A deal in Texas that I've been waiting on a call, a seller finance deal, but we'll deal with that after. You guys aren't here for seller calls, or agent calls, so we're here for appraisal stuff. What else? Great question. So yeah, ask a lender. I'd ask a lender and say, hey, who's your favorite appraiser who does good work? They'll send you to somebody good. Like-minded people. What is the adjustment plus or minus for lot size if the house is actually a good comp? Once again, the classic answer depends on your area. But general rule of thumb, it's usually in my market, it's a couple dollars a square foot. You can go down, you can derive it, you can go break it down, you can go find a lot that's vacant. And I mean, the simplest way, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can approach it. There's literally, you'll learn this in appraising. There's like 5 ways you can approach any one thing and come up with a pretty good answer. There's just different techniques to derive value. The easiest one for most people is to do what's called a paired sales analysis. So say you have a great comp and one that has, you know, is all a great comp, but it's just bigger. Go find in that subdivision a different style of home. Maybe you're doing a single level, and go find a 2-story and compare it to another 2-story that one's got a small lot, one's got a big lot, and try to find identical apples to apples, like you said. And if the only thing different is the land, then you can see the price difference. Maybe it was $5 grand that it sold more. And then you can calculate that out and say, okay, well, for an extra 1,000 square feet, everything else being equal, typical buyer is going to pay $5 grand more. So that's pretty generalized, but we can talk more about that as well. But that's a pretty standard way to go about it. But usually it's a couple dollars. Nice areas, it's more per square foot. How do you handle a sold comp that is a pocket listing? And is it messing up the value, but you need that comp? Great question. As an appraiser, you're looking for things that have typical exposure time. Was it marketed adequately, right? Because if you have a pocket listing, you bring it to me and I buy it because I know it's a great deal. That might not be representative market value. You throw that up on the MLS, you wait 90 days, you're going to get a full price offer that's probably higher than whatever I'm paying for it. So it definitely can mess with value a little bit. A good appraiser is going to know when that was an investor sale and that that's not representative of what the current market is. But if you need that as a comp, call and ask questions. If you can get people to answer, say, hey, what was the situation on this one? Do you think it sold below? Like, did it sell below what you think market would have been? Why did they sell this way? Oh, they just wanted to hurry. They didn't want to go through a bunch of showings. They didn't mind taking a small discount. And then know, okay, well, I'm probably a little bit above that. Kind of use it as more of like your floor as opposed to like a great comp. Like you said, some agents put them on the market for 1 day and it's not even max. Yeah. that's exactly, I've seen that too. If I've got a property next door, a property literally next door that fits all the comp specs, should I stop there with one comparable? For your purposes, I mean, go ahead and look at your comparables because there's a rare chance, it's rare that it's an outlier. And it just sold, somebody came in like in Phoenix, we had people coming in from California and they would way overpay for a property. And so it might look like it's a good comp, but go ahead and look at your other sales. And if everything else kind of justifying it, like that's going to be your best comp, right? That's the ideal situation. What is going to happen with all the inflated mortgages when the market sinks? They're going to be upside down. I mean, plain and simple. What does C5, C6 condition mean? If you'd like, I'm a little over, I got 5 more minutes that I probably can, if this is helpful, I can give a little bit more time, right? I mean, I got other things to do today, but I mean, we all got things to do and none of it, the thing I love about investing is the things I got to do can be moved around a little bit. As an appraiser, like, dude, they have a deadline. It's like in school. Like if you submit your paper late, you get docked points. In appraising, you submit too many reports late and they're upset with you and they're going to send you less work. So, which is so funny because then I like ask them for information. I'm like, hey, you didn't give me the contract. And then like 5 days go by and they finally give it to me. And I'm like, well, how come it's so one-sided? Anyway, let me get off my soapbox. C5 condition. I can read to you the definition. C5, I won't read it, but I'll just overview it. Condition, and you can just Google this. Google C5 condition appraisal form or something like that, and it'll pull up the exact definition. So basically, it's just some building components need repair, rehabilitation, or updating. The functional utility, the overall livability of the home is somewhat diminished due to the condition, but the dwelling remains a usable and functional as a residence. So you're like, wow, a lender won't lend on something that's livable. They won't if it meets that criteria. And C6 is that burn house we just saw, like it's toxic to live there, like you can't. So hopefully that helps that. Can we copy the slides? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, that was actually my question, and I didn't want to take up anybody else's time. So I mean, I can just go and Google that. That's actually what I was gonna ask, if I could just Google it. So
you can, you definitely can, and or hit me up
Appreciate
offline. I'll just copy and paste, send it your way. So
Okay,
most of what
thank
you guys are going to be dealing with, you guys might be buying or wholesaling C5, C6 properties, but when you're determining ARV, you don't really need to worry about that necessarily because it's going to be a C3, C2 condition because you're updating all those things. Now it's meeting those higher criterias. Great question though. I really like it.
I do have a question. What should we be as wholesalers? We were doing 0.70 of the ARV. What should we be doing now?
Oh, for your to determine what your cost, like what you're willing to pay for the property.
Yeah, yes.
What I would do is I mean, if in your market 0.70 works for you, you can wholesale above 70% ARV. That's fantastic. In my market, it's a little, that would be pushing it. But what I would do is don't worry about your percentage. That's probably going to stay similar. Worry about your ARV, right? So if your comps are old or if you know the market's trending down and by the time somebody fix and flips this, the market's going to come off another 5%. Because if the Fed meets 2 more times this year, and if interest rates get hiked another 1.5 like projected, we don't know if that'll happen for sure. Market is going to continue to come down because less and less people can buy. Appraisers rely on, simple supply and demand. More buyers, more consumers, less inventory, prices go up. The opposite's also true. We went from 3,800 listings in January here in Phoenix, and we're at 21,000 right now. Way more inventory, way less buyers, market's coming down, right? Pretty basic. So what I would do is on your ARV, find out what your market is declining at and maybe take 10% off your ARV, 5%, 20%. It's going to vary area to area. And then keep your percentage the same. If that percentage works, I would worry more about the ARV, less about the percentage.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I like that, Cashflow Johnny. My name's Cashflow Hunter on IG, which is because I figured I hunt for cash flow, but I like Cashflow Johnny and we'll become friends. That's not a question, but I just saw it. I think we're pretty much caught up. If I'm missing anything, let me know, but I think that go ahead.
How does the lender chooses you as the appraiser or chooses the company? You have like,
oh yeah, great question.
Or by consistency or?
It's a system. So what happened after 2008, it used to be like, Daniel, it used to be like, you could call me up and be like, Hunter, I'm buying this property, I need an appraisal. I'd stroll up, I'd appraise your property, I'd give it to the bank, done. 2008 rolls around. And they nixed all that, right? They didn't want buddies doing appraisals for buddies because appraisers used to get, I mean, it used to be a good gig. Before my time, it was a good gig. I mean, you got wined and dined, you got taken to sports games, like everyone wanted to be buddies with the appraiser because you determine value. Like they were giving you all these perks. 2008, they put an end to that. It's very regulated, and every lender has a panel of appraisers. You have to apply to be on the panel, send a resume, answer all these questions, and if they accept you, you're in a very tight knit of appraisers. It's usually, depending on the size of the lender, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10, all the way up to a couple hundred when you're doing stuff for Rocket Mortgage and stuff like that, which I do. And then they are required, not only do I have to get on their panel, when you're getting a loan through any lender, they have to use the appraisers on their panel. And not only that, they have to rotate through them. So even if they really like me as an appraiser, like they're like, man, he always turns things fast and he does a great job and has great communication, doesn't matter. Next guy, next guy, next guy, next guy, back to me. And so if I'm on a panel of 10, I will do every 10th loan, and it's totally randomized. So great question.
All right. The second question that I have is regarding do blueprints or permits have any weight, but not on a land, specifically on a existing construction, but they can demolish it and rebuild on it, and they have plans and they have blueprints. They don't necessarily need to demolish the structure, but they want to. Do plans and blueprints and permits have any weight on the appraisal?
So yeah, you're kind of asking a couple questions together from an appraisal perspective. So whenever you do what's called a plans and specs appraisal, what you're doing is in essence, you're determining ARV in a way. What you're saying is, hey, they're going to doze this house. Here's the cost breakdown. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's the specs of the home. It's going to be 4,000 square feet, Rambler on an acre in a beautiful area. Then as an appraiser, you actually don't even have to, because you're actually appraising using what's, once again, appraisal jargon, a hypothetical condition saying, if this was done today, here's what it would be worth. And so blueprints and plans definitely impact what the value is if they're doing a plans and specs appraisal. A great question on permits. A lot of people ask, well, I did this addition, it wasn't permitted, right? Well, some appraisers, I've heard from an appraiser, hey, you can't give value because it's unpermitted. It's area by area. And what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac says is if it's typically accepted in the marketplace, you can give it value. So in our area, right, we had tons of garage conversions and, obviously on that one we looked at, there was a carport turned into living area. Half of those are permitted, half of them are not. Half of them, the guy's like, I can build this, and they do it. If it's typical in the market to have unpermitted additions, appraisers will still give them value. And that's what it says in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is you just got to treat, you're not there to be the code police. You're there to interpret what the market will do on that property. Great question.
All right. And my last question is going back to solar panels. Since this is like a new trend in the last 5 years, 8 years, and you say that if they have a loan or even a PACE assessment, I guess, they're not counting onto the value of the home, but if they're paid off, they might. Are they full retail value, which is like 50, 60,000, or what's the price for it?
It's usually, I mean, to be safe, 50% in some situations is generous. So like most appraisers I talk to, like you might spend 40 grand on your panels and the appraiser might give you 15 for a couple reasons. Inexperience with it. So appraiser's like, well, I don't know how to value this. And okay, I see over here that these two houses, one had them, one didn't, and there's literally no difference in the sale price, right? A lot of times most appraisers will give at least something, but it's because it is so new, just like a lot of big regulated industries or even communities that are super regulated, takes forever to come down the pipeline. So I don't think we'll really get accurate values. You can ask for a certified green appraiser. That's what you can do. If you have a property like that, say, hey, ask the lender, say, hey, I want a certified green appraiser, because they're going to know how to deal with solar panels in your market and what they actually contribute. And you're likely going to get more value out of it than if you just go send it to whoever your appraiser is, because you don't know who you're going to get. It's random.
Okay. Those two for the batteries, because I know the batteries are expensive as well.
Same thing with the batteries. So sometimes this is getting off in the weeds a little bit, but you can do what's called a super adequacy in appraising, where if the market is not willing to pay more for that feature, like for example, I see that in geothermal heating and cooling, you might spend $100,000 to cool and heat your house that way. But the typical buyer, a special buyer will pay it, but the appraiser's job is to interpret the typical buyer, and the typical buyer might not give that value. Does that make sense? Like the typical buyer is like, well, I'm not gonna pay $100,000 because it saves me $100 and it's good for the environment. They're like, I'm gonna go buy this house over here, same house, without it, 100 grand cheaper. Does that make sense? But if they're like, it's only 20 grand more, they might actually consider it. Great question.
And I have a question I want to add. If can the buyer request for the solar panels to be removed because they don't want to pay for it?
Go ahead, say that again.
Okay. Can the buyer request that the solar panels be removed because they don't want to pay for it? The extra?
I mean, yeah, but that doesn't come down. That's not on the appraisal side. I mean, that would all be between the seller and buyer. So like, I mean, you can talk to your.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, Hunter. You know, we had a situation where we sold our family's house. It's been in our family for over 40 years in the San Fernando Valley out here in LA. We sold it back. Yeah, we sold it in 20. What's that?
So my dad grew up nearby, Simi Valley.
Oh, nice. Yeah, right down the 118 freeway.
Down the road a little bit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so when we sold the house, my parents, they they got the house when we moved to California back in 78 it was. And so my sister ended up buying it from my mom's landlord in 1991. And we ended up selling the house in 2018 we sold it. And so she had just had it retrofitted for solar panels, maybe was it like late 2016? So she was barely starting to enjoy the energy savings. And then all of a sudden, right. And then during the sale, the owner, back to Val's question, one of the potential owners was asking if we can get the panels removed, but they didn't want to pay for it, So what ended up happening was that because it was 2018, she ended up getting 8 offers above asking on the price, for the house and everything. And one of the person that ended up buying it actually ended up buying it with the panels, but then ended up having the panels removed. So they paid for it themselves.
Yeah, so solar panels are definitely tricky. All right, guys, I am out of time. We can wrap it up. I'll pass some time over back to Dustin. We can wrap it up with one last question or any last comments or things you wanted to mention, Dustin or Carlos. And then I got to run, but I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the community you guys are bringing, building, and this is my first introduction to it. And I can tell you guys are doing something really special here, and just by the energy that I feel in the community that you're creating. So yeah, it's just awesome. I
have one for waterfront or lake properties. Anything that you do different? Waterfront, oceanfront.
So when you get into those really like those high-end areas that have waterfront, appraisers will actually do an adjustment for frontage foot. So meaning that like different houses, depending on how much frontage they have on a lake or on the ocean or wherever they're at, sells for a lot more. I don't deal with that very much here in Arizona. We have a few lake properties, but it's really easy just to find a similar lake property. They're like man-made lakes, right? It's not like wherever you guys are at where they're just beautiful, natural forming or whatnot. And so what I would do is try to find other lakefront properties. And then if you don't have any comps on the lake, you need to go back in time and look at houses that are similar that sold on the lake, off the lake, on the ocean, off the ocean. Ideally, those get really hard. I would try your very best to find properties already on the water too, and then adjust elsewhere. But if you can't, go see, and it might be like every house, because I mean, you can see for views like waterfront, I mean, the lots, you can see it's easier to do in land. If you've got a vacant land on the lot and then you see a sale that's the same size as sold off the land, off the water, it's a really easy to determine what the percentage of difference is going to be. But it can range. Like I've seen anywhere from like 5% to literally 50% more. Like a house off the water, 500,000, on the water, 750, because it's that valuable to have that kind of a view. Views are really difficult. So if you can find something with similar view, do it all day long. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
I know
Dustin,
you're
still
on
with
time,
us?
Hunter, but if I may, I'm just ask your permission to send you a friend request.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
come in
you.
late.
Thanks, Hunter. Thank you. Yo, Dustin, your mic is muted.
Dang it. Okay. But yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I want to give props to a couple of people that put in there that were just saying, they're out in Arizona, right around with you. They want to figure out how to find you, and they want to figure out how they can provide value to you. That's the way the community works in here, man. It's just everybody looking to, go give, each one teach one, and just continue to grow and improve the industry itself here. So what I want to finish off with, and just let you go on your way, because we value your time very much, is where can people find you? What's the best way to reach you? And just to connect with you on another level.
So I'm gonna throw my information, my phone number. I don't know if you guys have seen, but as I've been talking, my direct cell phone number is right up there on the screen. Hit me at that. Instagram is probably my preferred place. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw that my handle again in there, just at @cashflowhunter _. And that's gonna be the best place, is phone number or IG, and just introduce yourself. Like if I get a text like, hey, I want you to look at property, just definitely at least say your name. I mean, that's pretty common. I've heard other people definitely say that. Say, here's where I saw you. Because sometimes people reach out, hey, I saw your comment on this post. Great. If I know where you came from, that's helpful to me. And if you tell me, hey, part of Powerhouse, I saw you on Powerhouse, like, one, I'm going to treat you extra special because Dustin's legit, Carlos is legit. So I'm going to take good care of you guys. So that's going to be the easiest way to connect. Great question, Dustin.
Thank you.
Awesome. I made the link clickable so you guys can click over to Instagram, go ahead and follow him. But awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. I'm definitely going to do this more. I'll be in touch. We'll definitely figure that out and figure out how we can continue to provide additional value to you. Thank you so much for today.
No, I appreciate it. And just a heads up too, on the Instagram, at Scale and Escape, I was chastised by the speakers. They said, you need to be doing social media. I have not been doing social media. I made my account public today for you guys, because I was like, people are going to try to reach out to me and I don't have a public, Instagram. There's no way they can. So I wiped everything. So you're going to step on there. There's going to be like one post. It's going to be a reel of a mobile home flip. I posted it like 2 hours ago. So anyway, I'm going to start posting a lot more stuff, a lot of it relating around comping. So
awesome. Ask anybody here. You already know me. I'm here to help you as well. We'll go ahead and get that all set up for you so you can take that to the next level as well. Because you got a lot of information, man, and we'll get it out to the masses. So
cool. You guys are awesome. I'm going to peace out. Pleasure getting to know a lot of you guys.
Likewise.
Peace out, my man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it.
All right, bro. Have a great day.
Appreciate it, brother. Bye-bye.